Hey everybody, it's Pastor Rob with today's Bible break message on this subject, the lawn of your life. Yes, you heard me right, the lawn of your life. You say, where, preacher, are you getting that from? I'm in the book of Isaiah in chapter 40 and verse 6. I want you to listen to this Bible verse. The Bible says this, and the voice said, cry. Now that's God telling the prophet Isaiah. And he said, what shall I cry? God says back to him, all flesh is grass, and the goodliness thereof is as the flower of the field. Now that's interesting. God says to Isaiah, he says, I want you to tell my people, hey, let me give you a physical, visual representation of a spiritual truth that your life is like the grass of the field or the grass of the lawn. Now, it's interesting. In the Bible, God uses all kinds of types and pictures to illustrate and represent spiritual truth. Sometimes he likens us unto sheep. Sometimes he likens us unto trees, but here he likens us unto grass. And there's 4 types of grass I want to just point out to you today that maybe the Lord is trying to point out in our life. If all flesh is as grass, we know there's one type of grass called a shade grass. And the shade grass only thrives in the shade. I mean, it can't take the heat. It can't take the sunshine. It can't take the drought. It has to have a nice climate to grow and thrive. As long as it's shady, as long as it's cool, as long as it's well watered, man, it's good. It's fine. And I think of that, so many Christians like that, as long as everything's going okay, as long as it doesn't get too hot, as long as it doesn't get too uncomfortable, well, they're fine. But you let the sunshine of difficulty, trials, and temptations rest upon them, and all of a sudden that shade evaporates, and they wither away. That's one type of grass we might be. Now, another type of grass is the exact opposite, sungrass. Sungrass doesn't do good in the shade. Sungrass needs the bright light to thrive. I don't know about your yard, but my yard has a mixture of both. I got some areas that are shady and some areas that are sunny. And you go down to the feed store, and they usually sell you a bag of both. And usually whatever doesn't grow in that area will die off. But sungrass is a grass that has to have the bright light. And there's a lot of Christians out there that I've met, and I'm sure you've met too, that, as long as they get recognized and rewarded, as long as the accolades come, or they see the results of their ministry or the return on their investment, they're fine. And but things don't go so well when the clouds begin to obscure them. When there is the obscuring of the spotlight and their name's not in the bulletin, or they're not recognized from the pulpit, or they don't get an attaboy every once in a while, all of a sudden things begin to wither away. And my friends, we ought not to be that way. We ought to serve God because we love God and because we are called to be faithful. Now, it's nice to get an attaboy. We all like to get one. But listen, we don't serve to get an attaboy or reward. We serve because we love the Lord and we want to be faithful to Him. Now, a third type of grass is probably my least favorite type of grass in the whole wide world, and that's crabgrass. All right, crabgrass is just nasty, and I happen to be a lawn lover. I like to put down 4 Scotch treatments a year. I cross-cut my lawn in 4 different patterns. I like to have those nice mow marks in my yard. I try to water my yard, keep the weeds out. But I'm telling you, you get an infestation of crabgrass, and all of a sudden, the heat of the summertime, that crabgrass wants to just take over. And the hotter, the worse it is. The hotter the year and the drier it is, the crabbier the grass. Well, that's emblematic too. It's interesting. You get an otherwise spiritual and even-tempered Christian, and all of a sudden the rain stops, and then it gets hot, and it gets uncomfortable, and maybe the situation or circumstances of life start to get unpleasant, and all of a sudden that crabgrass begins to branch out, pushing out all the other grass around it, begin infecting everything in an area, and just begins to bloom up, all right? I've seen crabgrass in my backyard 3 foot high, and when it gets away or in a corner, I don't let it go that high in the yard. But listen, crabgrass is that representation of the fact that when things don't go our way, we start to get crabby. We begin to get grousey, and we begin to tell you, crabgrass is tough, and it's hard to eradicate. But there's another type of grass, and it's flowering grass. The Bible speaks about over and over again flowering grass. That's grass that wherever God puts it, it blooms. All right, it brings forth seed. It shows forth, and it just grows and it flourishes where God plants it. And that's what God's looking for. God's looking for us to bloom where we're planted. So when you think about the lawn of your life, ask yourself, am I shade grass? Am I sun grass? Am I crabgrass? Or am I flowering grass? Let's think about the lawn of our life. I hope this has been a help to you. It was a challenge to me. Until we meet again, my friend, let's keep looking unto Jesus.